Good day, everyone. I am Angela Rose Rasko from grade 12 Deville A. St. Timothy. Today, I will be discussing the importance of media and information literacy, or simply MIL. So, before I begin, let me ask you a question. Did you check your phone or social media today? Most of us probably opened Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, or Messenger. Every single day, we receive a huge amount of information from different sources. We watch videos, read the news, see advertisements, and talk to people both online and offline. But here's another question. Can we believe everything we see online? The answer is no. Not everything posted on the internet is true. Some information is accurate while some can be fake, misleading, or even created to fool people. That is why media and information literacy is very important. It teaches us how to think before believing information, how to check if it's reliable, and how to use media responsibly. So now let's look at our objectives. So by the end of this presentation, we should be able to define what media and information literacy is, understand why it is important, identify its key components, and learn how it is applied in everyday life, and lastly, become a responsible digital citizen. So these objectives will guide us throughout our discussion. So, what is media and information literacy is? So, media and information literacy, or MIL, is the ability to access, analyze, evaluate, create, locate, and use information effectively. But what does that really mean? It means that whenever we see information online or through other forms of media, we shouldn't immediately believe it or share it. Instead, we should first think critically, check if the information is reliable, and determine whether it comes from a trustworthy source. For example, if someone posts on Facebook that classes are suspended tomorrow, we shouldn't immediately believe it. We should first check official announcements from our local government or the Department of Education before sharing the post. So, in simple words, media and information literacy helps us become more smarter and more responsible users of information. Now, let's talk about why media and information literacy is important. So, first, it shapes public opinion. So, the news we watch, the videos we see online, and the posts we read on social media can influence how we think and feel and make decisions. So, second, MIL helps prevent fake news. So, since false information spreads very quickly on the internet, we should verify facts before believing or sharing them. And third, it develops our critical thinking skills. Instead of accepting everything we see, we learn to ask questions and think carefully. And lastly, it promotes responsible citizenship. So when people share accurate information and communicate respectfully, they help them create a safer and more informed community. So media affects many of our everyday decisions. So for example, news. News reports help us stay informed about current events, and advertisements influence what products we buy, and television programs shapes our opinions about different topics, and social media affects the trends we follow, the places we visit, and even the clothes we wear. And radio also continues to provide information, especially during emergencies and natural disasters. So, because media has such a strong influence, it's important to understand that not everything we see is completely accurate or unbiased. That is why media and information literacy is so important. Now, let's talk about one of the biggest problems on the internet today, and that is fake news. Fake news is false or misleading information that is shared as if it were true. The problem is that fake news spreads very quickly because many people immediately believe and share it without checking if it's true. So today, all it takes is just one click on the share button for thousands of people to see the same false information. For example, a screenshot of a false weather update. So sometimes fake Facebook pages pretend to be the official Pag-asa page. They post fake weather updates or flood warnings that look real. So since the page looks official, many people believe it and share it immediately. One of the most important skills that media and information literacy teaches us is critical thinking. But what does critical thinking mean? So it simply means thinking carefully before believing or accepting information as true. Instead of believing everything we see online, we should ask ourselves a few important questions. The first question is, who made this information? Was it written by a journalist, a teacher, a scientist, or just an anonymous person on social media? Knowing who created the information help us decide if the source is trustworthy. The second question is, why was it created? Some content is made to educate people and some is made to entertain us and some is made to advertise products and sometimes content is created just to get more views, likes or shares even if the information isn't true. The third question is it true? We should never depend on only one source. If several trusted sources report the same information, then it is more likely to be true. And another important question is it biased? Sometimes a person only shows one side of a story because their own opinions or beliefs. When that happens, we may not get the complete picture. And finally, ask yourself, can I verify it? If the information can be confirmed by trusted sources, then it is much more reliable. So, critical thinking is not about doubting everything. It is about taking a moment to check the facts before believing or sharing the information. Media comes in different forms, and each one helps us communicate and receive information. So, first is print media, which includes newspapers, books, and magazines. Although many people now use digital platforms, printed materials are still valuable sources of information, especially in the elderlies. Second is broadcast media, such as television and radio. These allow information to reach many people at the same time, especially during news reports and emergency announcements. Third is interpersonal media, which includes face to face conversations, phone calls, and video calls. This type of communication allows people to exchange information directly. And lastly, we have digital media, which includes social media, websites, and mobile applications. So, digital media is one of the most widely used forms of communication today because it allows people to access information anytime and anywhere. So, by just understanding these different types of media, it helps us know how information is shared and how it influences our daily lives. So, not all information is completely neutral. Sometimes media contains bias. So, bias is presenting information in a way that favors one opinion, belief, or point of view over another. So, for example, some news reports focus only on one side of an issue, and advertisements usually tells us all the good things about a product but don't mention its disadvantages. And even social media posts can be biased because people often share information that supports only their opinions. That's why we should always check different sources before deciding what to believe. So, just by looking at different opinions, we can understand the topic better and make fairer decisions instead of only believing one side. And also, before believing or sharing any information, we should always ask ourselves one important question: can I trust this source? So, there are a few simple things we can check. So, first, who is the author? Is the person qualified or knowledgeable about the topic? So, for example, if you're reading about health information from doctors or medical, it's generally more reliable than random social media post. Second, when was it published? So some information becomes outdated over time. So always check if the information is recent, especially when it comes to news or scientific topics. Third, is there evidence? So reliable information is usually supported by facts, research, or trusted references. If there is no evidence, we should be more careful before believing it. And finally, is the source reliable? So the trusted sources can only be at government websites, schools, universities, or other news organizations because they check their information carefully before publishing it. Now let's see how media and information literacy helps us in different ways. So first, MIL in school. So every day we use information to complete assignments, make presentations, and do research. However, not everything we find on the internet is true or reliable. Some websites contain incorrect or outdated information, so it's important to check if the source can be trusted. So, for example, if you're researching a topic for a project, don't use the first website you see. Instead, compare different sources and make sure the information is accurate. Another important part of media and information literacy is avoiding plagiarism. This means we should never copy someone else's work and claim it as our own. We should always give credit to the original author. So, MIL is not only useful in school, it is something that we use almost every day, even without realizing it. So, for example, when shopping online on apps like Shopee or Lazada, MIL helps us decide whether a seller is trustworthy. So, instead of buying the first product we see, we check the seller's ratings, customer reviews, and product photos. So by doing this, it helps us avoid fake products and scam. MIL is also important when using social media because before posting, commenting, or sharing something, we should ask ourselves, is this information true? If we are not sure, it's better to not share it. And also, MIL helps us when reading the news. Sometimes different news pages report the same event in different ways. So instead of believing only one source, we should always compare different trusted news to understand the complete story. And another example is online scams. Sometimes we receive messages saying, "Congratulations, you won a prize. Click this link to claim it." So many of these messages are fake because media and information literacy, we learn to recognize these scams and avoid being or becoming a victim. So every day, MIL helps us make smarter, safer, and more responsible decisions both online and offline. And lastly, let's talk about how MIL helps our society. So, MIL is not only important in school but also in our society. because every day people use television, radio, newspapers, websites, and social media to learn about what's happening in their community and around the world. And because of this, it's very important that the information people receive and share is true and reliable. So for example, sometimes a video becomes viral on TikTok or Facebook, and many people immediately believe everything they see. They start sharing the video and with their friends and family without checking if it's true. Later, they find out that the video was edited, taken out of context, or missing important information. So, this shows why we should always check reliable sources before believing or sharing viral posts. So, this is where media and information literacy becomes important. It teaches us to stop, think, and verify the information before sharing it with others. MIL also teaches us to respect other people's opinions. We all have different ideas and beliefs, and that's normal. Even if we don't agree with someone, we should communicate politely instead of arguing or spreading hate online. Another important lesson is that our actions online can affect many people. Every time we post, comment, or share something, other people can see it. If the information is accurate, it can help people learn something new. But if it's false, it can confuse others and spread misinformation. So that's why we should always ask ourselves, is this information true? Can I trust this source? So just taking just a few minutes to check the facts can make a big difference. So we're done. And but before I end my presentation, let's review the most important lessons we learned today. So first, always think critically. So don't believe everything you see online right away. So just take a moment to ask questions and check if the information is true. And second, always verify the information. Always check reliable sources before believing or sharing any news or information. And third, learn to recognize bias. Always remember that not every article, video, or social media post shows the complete story. It is always better to look at different sources before making your own opinion. And finally, share responsibly. Every time we post, comment, or share something online, we have a responsibility. A single click on the share button can spread helpful information, or it can spread fake news. And that is why we should always think before we click. And if all of us practice these simple habits, we can become a much more responsible media users and help create a safer and more informed online community. So that brings us to the end of my presentation on the importance of media and information literacy. So we learned what media and information literacy is, why it is important, and the different types of media, and how to recognize fake news and bias, and how to evaluate information before believing or sharing it. We also learned that media and information literacy is useful not only in our school but also in our daily lives. So I hope this discussion has helped understand why media and information literacy is an important skill that we should all practice every day. So that's all for my presentation. Thank you for listening. Bye bye po.